What if I told you that everything you've been feeling in social situations, the racing heart, the sweaty palms, the endless thoughts spinning in your head, wasn't a flaw but a signal? What if I told you that the reason you overshare, the reason you reveal too much too soon isn't weakness, it's your brain trying to protect you, trying to connect you, trying to help you survive? And what if I told you that you could break free from this cycle, not by changing who you are, but by learning one simple truth, that connection, respect, and confidence don't come from spilling everything. They come from choosing what to share, protecting your energy, and trusting yourself. Imagine transforming every conversation, every interaction, every relationship by taking control of your words and your presence. Imagine feeling safe, confident, and magnetic without needing constant approval from anyone. If you stay with me for the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how to turn social anxiety and oversharing from something that drains you into something that empowers you. And it all starts with one small, shocking shift in your mindset. What if I told you that everything you've been feeling in social situations isn't just nervousness or shyness, but a deeply wired survival mechanism in your brain that's been silently controlling your life? Imagine walking into a room and feeling your heart race, palms sweat, thoughts spin, and suddenly the only thing you want to do is escape or talk too much just to fill the silence. That's social anxiety. It's not a flaw, it's a signal, your mind protecting you from perceived danger, even when there is none. And here's the shocking truth. The more you fight it or try to hide it, the louder it screams, often pushing you to overshare in an unconscious bid for acceptance. Social anxiety isn't just being awkward or introverted, it's a high alert system in your brain, trained over years of experiences, small rejections, or critical comments. It whispers that if you make the wrong move, if you say the wrong thing, people will judge you or reject you, so you overcompensate by sharing everything about yourself in the hope that anyone will like you. But here's the twist. Oversharing is a double-edged sword. It temporarily relieves the tension, but it can actually isolate you further because it often overwhelms people or comes across as seeking validation. Imagine if you could see this cycle clearly, like watching a movie of yourself from the outside. You'd notice how your brain tricks you into thinking, if I reveal this secret, I will belong. And every time you do, the anxious part of your brain relaxes momentarily, but the social world doesn't always respond the way you hope. That's why self-awareness becomes your secret weapon. Understanding that your anxiety is not a personal defect, but a protective mechanism allows you to pause, breathe, and make conscious choices about what you share. And the shocking part is that millions of people are trapped in this loop, believing they are the only ones who feel this way, oversharing in meetings, in chats, in relationships, thinking that connection comes through spilling everything. But the truth is, connection comes through presence, thoughtfulness, and awareness. Social anxiety doesn't define you, but if you keep letting it drive your words, it will quietly shape your life, your relationships, and the way the world perceives you in ways you may never realize. What if I told you that every time you feel the urge to spill your thoughts, your feelings, or your secrets, you're stepping into a trap that your mind has set for you without you even realizing it? Imagine sitting across someone, your heart racing, and the words just flowing out of your mouth, things you don't even know why you're sharing. That's oversharing, and it's not just harmless chatter. It's a psychological trap your brain creates to cope with discomfort, a desperate attempt to connect when deep down you feel isolated or unseen. Here's the shocking truth. Oversharing feels like release, but it's actually a subtle form of self-sabotage. When you overshare, your anxiety temporarily fades because you feel heard, but the connection you crave rarely lasts. In fact, it can backfire. People start to pull away, relationships feel unbalanced, and deep down, you're left feeling more exposed and vulnerable than ever. Your mind tricks you into thinking that more is better, that if you reveal enough, someone will finally understand you. But the exact opposite happens. The more you reveal without awareness, the more fragile your sense of connection becomes. Oversharing is often disguised as honesty, authenticity, or even humor, but it's actually a coping mechanism. It's your brain saying, if I can't calm my anxiety from within, maybe I can calm it by external validation. And this is where most people get stuck, repeating the cycle over and over, thinking the solution is to just talk more while the real problem is invisible. Now, imagine if you could catch yourself in that moment before the words spill out. What if you could pause, breathe, and choose what to share and what to keep private, not because you're hiding, but because you're consciously protecting your energy, your dignity, and the quality of your relationships? The shocking reality is that true connection doesn't come from saying everything. It comes from sharing with intention. Every word you choose to withhold in the moment actually builds trust, respect, and magnetic presence, turning oversharing from a weakness into a powerful tool for self-mastery. What if your social anxiety isn't your enemy, but the oversharing it drives is the real danger that keeps you trapped? Once you see it, you can break free, and suddenly the conversations, the relationships, and the respect you've been longing for are no longer distant dreams. They become your new reality. What if I told you that the most dangerous part of social anxiety isn't the fear, and the most damaging part of oversharing isn't the words, but the fact that most people live their lives completely unaware of it? Imagine this. Every time you speak without thinking, every time your emotions spill over, your mind is operating on autopilot, reacting to fear, craving validation, and you have no idea that your own habits are quietly shaping how the world sees you. That lack of awareness is the hidden trap that keeps social anxiety and oversharing locked in a cycle that feels impossible to break. Here's the shocking truth. Awareness is not just noticing your feelings, it's catching yourself mid-thought, mid-sentence and realizing, wait, why am I doing this? Most people never get this far. They think I'm just nervous or I can't help it. But in reality, self-awareness is the superpower that can transform every interaction you have. When you truly see your patterns, the compulsive talking, the over-explaining, the desperate need to be liked, you suddenly gain control over a force that has been running your life in the shadows. Think about it. Every time you overshare, it's your brain saying, you're unsafe, seek approval, protect yourself, and every time you let that happen unconsciously, you reinforce the loop. But the moment you pause, observe, and name the pattern, something miraculous happens. Power shifts from your anxiety to your consciousness. You realize that you are not your thoughts, not your impulses, not the voice that urges you to reveal everything at once. You are the observer. And once you become the observer, you can choose which words serve you, which emotions to act on, and which reactions to release into the world. What's even more shocking is how liberating this is. Self-awareness doesn't just stop oversharing. It transforms your relationships, your confidence, and your ability to connect authentically. People begin to respect your presence, your words carry weight, and the anxiety that once felt uncontrollable starts to shrink because it no longer drives your actions unconsciously. Imagine living in a world where every word you speak is intentional, every emotion you share is measured, and every interaction leaves you feeling powerful instead of drained. That world isn't fantasy. It begins the moment you recognize the invisible forces running your mind and decide to become aware. What if I told you that every time you let someone cross your emotional or mental limits, you're silently teaching the world how to treat you, and every time you overshare, you are handing over pieces of yourself you may never get back? Imagine feeling drained after a conversation, realizing you revealed more than you intended, all because you never learned to protect your own energy. The shocking truth is that boundaries aren't just rules for others. They are lifelines for your mental health, shields for your confidence, and the invisible force that transforms anxiety into control. Here's the brutal reality. People who overshare often think that connection comes from total openness, but the exact opposite is true. Without boundaries, you are giving the world unrestricted access to your emotions, your thoughts, and your vulnerabilities. And instead of fostering closeness, it often leads to judgment, misunderstanding, or even exploitation. Every overshared secret or emotion you release without intention chips away at your self-respect, leaving you exhausted, anxious, and even more desperate for approval. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being cold, distant, or dishonest. It means choosing what to reveal, when to reveal it, and to whom. It's the art of saying, I am valuable and my energy is sacred. And here's the shocking part. Most people have never been taught this. They drift through social interactions, unknowingly overextending themselves, confusing oversharing with intimacy, and wonder why they feel isolated, even when surrounded by people. Boundaries are the bridge between anxiety and empowerment, between chaos and clarity. Imagine if you could pause in every conversation, sense the moment before you speak, and ask yourself, does sharing this build connection or drain me? That pause, that tiny act of self-respect changes everything. Suddenly, you control the narrative of your life. Suddenly, people begin to respect you because you are no longer a mindless spill of emotions. You are intentional, present, and magnetic. What if the real power in social interactions isn't in talking more or revealing everything, but in holding some things back, protecting your mental space, and sharing only what elevates the connection? Boundaries are not walls. They are invisible threads of strength that make every interaction richer, every relationship deeper, and every moment you spend with yourself more peaceful, and the world begins to reflect the respect and value you finally give yourself. What if I told you that every compliment you chase, every like you seek, and every reassurance you ask for is quietly training your brain to depend on others for your happiness? And that dependence could be the invisible chain keeping your social anxiety alive. Imagine spending years trying to feel worthy, lovable, or confident, but every time you look outside yourself for approval, you feed the very fear that drives oversharing, panic, and self-doubt. The shocking truth is that most of us are living life in a feedback loop, hoping that external validation will heal the anxiety that only self-acceptance can. Think about it. Every time you overshare, it's often because your inner voice whispers, if they know everything, maybe they'll like me, maybe they'll accept me. But here's the brutal reality. No amount of external approval can replace the sense of worth that comes from within. Seeking validation from others gives temporary relief, a fleeting high. But it's like trying to fill a bottomless pit with water. The anxiety always returns stronger and louder. Your need to be seen becomes a habit, and every conversation, every relationship, every interaction becomes a test you can never pass. Now imagine if you could flip that script. What if your approval, your love, and your confidence didn't come from someone else, but from the only person who truly matters, you? The moment you start to validate yourself, to honor your emotions without seeking permission, everything changes. Oversharing loses its grip because you no longer need others to fill the gaps in your sense of worth. Conversations become lighter, interactions become intentional, and anxiety no longer controls your words or your presence. Here's the shocking twist. Most people mistake confidence for charm, social ease, or external achievements, but true confidence is invisible. It's quiet, grounded, and unshakable because it comes from inner validation. When you cultivate it, you no longer fear judgment, rejection, or silence. You speak, you pause, you share, and you protect yourself, not out of fear, but out of self-respect. You finally understand that. The most magnetic, respected, and empowered people are not those who overshare to be liked, but those who hold their candor, honor their worth, and let the world come to them naturally. What if the key to breaking free from social anxiety and the oversharing trap isn't learning new social tricks, but learning to love, trust, and validate yourself in ways no one else can? Once you do, everything, your conversations, your connections, your confidence will transform in ways you never imagined. What if I told you that the reason social anxiety and oversharing feel impossible to overcome is not because you are weak, but because you've been trying to leap over a mountain when all you needed was to take one small step? Imagine believing that transformation has to be dramatic, that you must suddenly be confident, articulate, and fearless overnight, and then beating yourself up every time you stumble. The shocking truth is that this all-or-nothing mindset keeps millions trapped, making them think that if change isn't instant, it's never going to happen, while the power of tiny, deliberate steps remains completely overlooked. Here's the reality. Small steps are the secret weapon your anxious mind fears because they quietly chip away at the habits that control you. Pausing before speaking, taking a deep breath when the urge to overshare arises, journaling your thoughts instead of spilling them, practicing mindful conversations. These aren't flashy fixes, but each one rewires your brain, proving that you are in control. Every micro decision you make to protect your energy or to speak with intention is a victory your anxious mind didn't expect, and that tiny victory compounds into courage, clarity, and presence. The shocking part is how much power lies in consistency. Most people want results fast, so they ignore small wins, never realizing that the subtle shifts are what transform anxiety into confidence. Each time you choose pause over panic, reflection over reaction, or self-respect over seeking approval, you are reshaping not just your behavior, but your identity. Your mind slowly rewires itself from fear-driven responses to conscious, empowered choices. Now imagine if you could see progress in fractions, not perfection, and celebrate every small breakthrough. The first time you didn't overshare in a meeting, the first time you spoke without trembling, the first time you didn't seek reassurance. Each small step signals your brain that you are safe, capable, and worthy. Over time, these tiny actions accumulate like invisible bricks, building a fortress of confidence that no social anxiety can penetrate. What if the path to overcoming social anxiety and breaking the oversharing habit isn't a giant leap, but a series of deliberate, courageous small steps that feel almost invisible at first, but ultimately reshape your life? Once you start honoring the power of these micro moments, you'll realize that transformation isn't some distant dream. It's happening quietly, steadily every single day. As you reflect on this journey, remember, social anxiety and the urge to overshare are not weaknesses, they are signals, teachers showing you where your power lies. The key isn't to fight every fear at once or to reveal everything to be accepted. The key is awareness, intention, and the courage to take small, meaningful steps every single day. When you honor your boundaries, trust yourself, and find validation from within, you stop letting anxiety in the world dictate your words, and you start choosing a life of freedom, confidence, and authentic connection. Good luck on this path. May every pause, every mindful word, and every courageous choice remind you of your strength and growth. Thank you for taking the time to listen, for opening your heart to change, and for stepping into the life you truly deserve.